Welcome to Garden Wise Adventures. My name is Malie, and today we are going to do another video on my indoor garden series. Now, I have a couple of hydroponics units, and I grow most of my other stuff in soil in pots. But we harvested some radishes, and I'll put a link up on top that talks a little bit about how we harvested those radishes. But when we harvested the radishes, we had some of the roots come off, and they are actually rotting in the unit right now. So it's time for me to clean out my hydroponics unit, which is not my favorite thing to do, but I want my tomatoes that are left in there to thrive. So let's look at my hydroponics unit and talk to you a little bit about what needs to be done, and then we'll show you how we clean it out. So this is my AeroGarden hydroponics unit. You can see that we have some tomatoes in here. They're looking really good and doing really well. The roots are looking pretty good. I'm not seeing rotting roots, but we don't want to get to the point where we're having rotting roots, so let's clean out the unit. So the first thing that we need to do is we need to unplug the unit. And I just reach around the back, find the plug, and unplug it. Now I'm going to need two hands to do this because the unit does have quite a bit of water in it, but we're going to carry this unit into my bathroom. Now, I'm sorry about the light in here. We don't have great light in my kitchen, but I wanted to show you my hydroponics unit. I decided that we were going to actually dump this into the sink because it's not that bad, but we are going to clean it out anyway because we want to avoid any rot. So the first thing that we're going to do is adjust this a little bit more so you can see it better. We're just going to pull out the trellis. Now this trellis came with the hydroponics unit. I really like it. You can buy them separately for other units. But they're just basically poles with a little trellis unit. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to turn this around and show you what it looks like in the back. So in the back, we have where we plug the unit in, and then this is where the light gets plugged in. So we're going to unplug this. And then I'm going to pull the light up so we just have a little bit more room to work with. I think we can remove this light, but I don't like to remove it. I just like to extend it. Now the AeroGarden unit is nice because if you work really carefully, you can actually just remove the entire tank. So we have the light stand right here. We have the tank separated. Now what we're going to do is we're going to get a bowl of water to put the tomatoes in. Now, a lot of people opt for distilled water when they're using hydroponics units, but I just go for tap water. So we're going to remove the tomatoes, look at the roots, and these roots look pretty good, but we're going to wash them off anyway. So over here at my sink, what we're going to do is we're just going to use tap water, rinse them off. And if these were longer and more extensive, we could actually cut these roots up, and just reduce the bulk of them. A lot of people will do that. It is helpful to your plants not to be completely congested with roots, but these do not need to be cut or reduced, so we're just going to stick these in the bowl. So this way, this plant can stay in water and stay hydrated while we work on the unit. We're going to do the same with the other tomato plant. Let's look and see how the roots on this one look. Now the roots on this one are a little more extensive, and what I'm thinking, because we're starting to get some brown, is we might have these roots tangled up with some of the old radish roots. Right down here it looks like they're probably tangled up. So what we're going to do is we're going to wash these roots and remove some of them. So we're going to wash the top roots, and then I just pulled off the bottom roots. So now I'm going to just make sure, turn off that water, make sure that these are not tangled up with dead roots and that these are just live roots. And make sure that anything that looks like it might start to rot is taken off. Okay, those look better. Looks like I removed quite a bit of roots, which I did, but this plant will be just fine. So we're going to stick that in the water. Now we're going to take this unit apart. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to take off all of the lids here. Put those aside. And then we're going to pull off this top part. Now, AeroGarden units are made differently than a lot of the other hydroponics units. I mean, there's some that are made like this, but as you can see right here, down here, there are little spouts. And what happens is the pump you can see the top of the pump. You can see the top of the pump right there, but we'll show you that in a little bit. That pump gets attached right here, and it circulates water through this double tray system. So we're going to have to take that apart, which is a little difficult, but if you pry very carefully, you can do it. It's got some tabs. There's tabs right here that you need to push that will help, and tabs up here that will help remove it. But we'll get to that in just a minute. Let's look at the inside. And you can look inside here. It doesn't look bad at all. But we've got some loose roots that will cause rot. You can see that they're starting to turn brown. We're going to clean out the filter a little bit, and then we're going to get rid of all of the sediment in there. So I do have a strainer in my sink. We're just going to pour the water in there and then scrub this out. Now if you look down here, I'm not going to pull the entire pump apart. I do pull the pump apart completely when I'm cleaning it up at the end of the year. But there's a little tiny filter. It's just a little sponge that has roots in it right now. So we're going to pull all the roots out of the sponge and we're going to rinse it out. That way we can make sure that the pump does not get clogged. So let me grab another sponge and we're going to scrub this out. I'm going to pour a little bit of vinegar in here to get rid of any hard water deposits and to sterilize it just a little bit. You can use hydrogen peroxide. Maybe you could use bleach. I wouldn't use bleach if the sponge is in there. But we're just going to scrub this out, make sure that any bacteria is gone. Now this is just a light cleaning. We're not going to completely scrub this out. We just want to make sure that we're not going to get any bacterial infection in our roots. I already see a couple of other places. We're going to scrub out just a little bit more. So I think that is good enough for a moderate cleaning on this. We're going to fill up this unit about halfway and then we'll fill it the rest of the way once we set it up where it's supposed to go, because I don't like to carry a unit completely full of water. Now we've got this partially filled up. Let's stick this back up here and clean out the tray. Let's see if we can get this open. Found it helps to do one tab at a time. And this is what it looks like when it's completely open. You see a little bit of sediment in here. This is why it's important to open it and clean it. So let's just use my scrub brush. If this was really dirty, what I would do is I would fill up my sink and add vinegar and let it soak for a while. That way any of this sediment, any of the hard water deposits would come off. Scrub the top of it. Make sure the top is nice and clean. Make sure there's no hard water deposits. So we've got one half nice and clean. So we're going to put it back together. Make sure the tabs all click through. And now the top is put back together. Now I'm going to dry this off because my water is so hard that if I leave any water on the top of this and don't dry it off, we're going to get hard water deposits. And hard water deposits are no fun to clean, and it starts making the unit look really gross and messy after a while. Now, the end of the season cleanup can take a little bit longer because at the end of the season, before spring, I get busy and I forget to clean it out as often, and you get a lot of hard water deposits and a lot of staining. Like I said, if you soak it in vinegar, it comes out nice and clean. And if you actually clean it out mid-season and often enough, at the end of the season cleanup is not going to be that bad. So now we'll put the unit back on the stand, which is really easy. At this point, we're going to make sure that we take the units, make sure that this is not wet. It did not get wet. Let's make sure it didn't get wet. Let's dry it just in case. But I was really careful not to get this wet. It wasn't wet. And we're going to plug the light back in right down here. Make sure it's plugged in all the way. And then I'm going to carry this unit right back in to my grow room and set it up back in there. So we have my hydroponics unit back up where it goes. We've got the trellis, we've got fertilizer and water. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to add the water up to the fill line. Make sure I have nice clean water. Like I said, you can use distilled water if you want. I am not really into that. I just use tap water. So now you can see that it is to the fill line. Sorry, camera again. That's to the fill line. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to add our fertilizer. The AeroGarden fertilizer is really nice, but you can see that it says 6 to 7 pod units need 8 mils of fertilizer. So let me put this camera down and measure out the fertilizer. We're going to do it in this cup that goes by milliliters. Now definitely watch what the instructions say for your unit and for how much fertilizer it says to use. This one says we're going to be using 8 milliliters of fertilizer at startup, and then every 2 weeks after that. So now the pump will turn on. Actually, look what I forgot. I forgot the filter. Let me go get the filter and shove that in there. Now you don't want to forget the filter because that is what's going to make sure your pump doesn't get clogged up. Let me switch hands here and see if I can do this and hold the camera at the same time. Now, as you can see, there's a few roots in there. It's not going to be a real problem because we're probably going to be cleaning this out again in a little bit, another 6 to 8 weeks. But now we've got the filter in there, we've got the water to the right proper fill line, we've got the fertilizer in there. Let's put the top on, and putting the top on is one of the easiest parts. That's it, the top is on. Now we're going to take our little beautiful plants that have been ripped out of their home, washed off, put them back in their nice clean home. So that's the easy part. Stick the plants right back in their unit. Nice roots on that. Sometimes you may need to use your fingers to shove the roots back in, but these roots are nice, so we didn't have to do it. Now they're back there. They're in their unit, nice and clean. We've got fertilizer. We're going to have to come in for this unit at 7 a.m. when I want the lights to turn in tomorrow and turn the lights back on. To reset the lights, I have to just hold this light switch right here and it will reset it for another 16 hours. We also pressed this button, which shows that we had fertilizer added today, and it'll start flashing in 2 weeks when it's ready. And then this, when the water gets too low, will turn red, but I never let the water get low enough for that to turn red. So there we have our unit put together. I'm going to stick the trellis back on and we'll be done. Now, when I first got my hydroponics units, I was very scared to clean them because I was really afraid that disturbing roots like that would destroy the plants. Now, if you take a plant out of a pot and mess with the roots too much, you can plant it in another pot as long as you're really careful and not ruin them. But if you washed all the soil off those roots, you would have to be really careful. But with the hydroponics units, the beauty of them are the roots are free-flowing anyway, and there's very little damage that you do to them. And any damage that is done is quickly regrown. So you don't really have to worry about damage when taking the plants out of the unit. Another thing you can actually do with those is when the plants are small, like I showed you in one of my other videos that I'll link up above, is if you have 2 or more plants growing out of one of those pods, you can very, very gently, if you do it while the plants are young enough, pull those seedlings out of the pod, and you can either split another one of the grow sponges and start those in another unit, or you can plant them in a pot full of soil and they do beautifully and grow well. So hydroponics units are a lot of fun. So I would love to hear how often you clean your units. Do you clean them every 6 to 8 weeks like I do, or do you just let them go a full season without cleaning them out? And how much success do you have doing that? So hopefully this video has been helpful to you. If it has been helpful, I hope you like, subscribe, share it with your friends, and go have a wonderful garden adventure.